I stood outside the restaurant's glass door, phone clenched tightly in my hand, my jaw set. She had no idea I was here, watching her every move. But I saw everything, her laugh, the way she leaned across the table, the way she looked at him like he was the only man in the world. Her hair caught the soft glow of the chandelier, and for a moment, I was frozen, not by admiration, but by the raw betrayal staring me in the face. Chloe, my wife of 6 years, was here with another man. Not at book club, as she had claimed, but here, dressed to kill, sipping wine, and flirting with a man I'd never seen in my life. I took a steadying breath and hit the dial button. My thumb hovered over the speaker icon, but I wanted to hear her voice, the lies, straight into my ear. "Hey, babe," she answered, her voice as sweet and casual as ever. "What's up?" I didn't speak right away. I watched through the window as she leaned down to her purse to check her phone. She didn't even look at the caller ID. Carefree. Confident. Not a worry in the world. "Where are you?" I asked, keeping my voice even, though every word felt like glass in my throat. "Oh," she said with a soft laugh, "just at book club with the girls. You know, wine, gossip, the usual." "Why?" She tipped her head back, laughing at something her date said, her hand delicately brushing his wrist. My blood boiled. "Book club, huh?" I said, my tone sharp. "You sure you're not somewhere else? Maybe Strettos?" Her laugh froze mid-sentence. I could see the flicker of panic cross her face before she quickly composed herself. "Wait, what? Strettos? Are you spying on me or something?" Her laugh this time was forced, nervous. "Oh my God, don't be so paranoid. I'm with the girls." I decided to cut to the chase. "Turn around, Chloe." Her body stiffened, and her head turned toward the window in slow motion, like she was in a horror movie. Our eyes met. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. She knew. She knew I had her. She whispered something to the man across from her, her hand flying to her hair as if she could fix this mess with a casual gesture. I slid my phone back into my pocket and stepped through the door, the bell overhead ringing like a warning shot. Every step I took toward her table felt heavier than the last. The restaurant was quiet, but all I could hear was the roaring in my ears. She didn't move. She just sat there, staring at me, like a deer caught in the headlights of a freight train. And the train wasn't stopping. The moment I walked into the restaurant, I saw her, red dress, wine glass in hand, leaning forward with a laugh that used to belong to me. Chloe. My wife. And she wasn't alone. There was no hiding it. She didn't see me yet, but her body language screamed betrayal. She was practically glowing under the soft restaurant lights, giggling at something the guy across from her was saying. His hand rested casually on the table, just close enough to hers that it made my stomach twist. I wasn't supposed to be here. I wasn't even supposed to know. But life has a funny way of giving you answers when you're not ready to hear them. Her excuse tonight? A girls' night. The reality? A romantic dinner with someone who wasn't her husband. For a split second, I considered turning around, walking out, and pretending I hadn't seen any of this. Ignorance is bliss, right? But then her voice echoed in my head, her playful, syrupy tone from the phone call earlier. "Don't wait up, babe. I'm with the girls tonight." Lies. All of it. My pulse hammered in my ears as I pulled out my phone, my fingers trembling with a mix of rage and adrenaline. I dialed her number, my eyes locked on her through the window. I wanted to see her face when she picked up. The phone rang once. Twice. She reached into her purse, oblivious, and answered with that same carefree voice I'd fallen in love with years ago. "Hey, babe," she chirped. "What's up?" I could barely contain the venom in my voice. What's up? I repeated, my tone sharp enough to cut glass. That's what you're going with? Chloe, where are you? Her expression didn't falter at first. She played her part flawlessly. Oh, just out with the girls. We're having wine, gossiping, you know, the usual. Is that so? I said, stepping closer to the window. I wanted her to see me, to feel the weight of her lies crumbling around her. Well, Chloe, do me a favor. Look behind you. I watched as her smile froze, her laugh dying in her throat. Slowly, almost painfully, she turned her head. Our eyes met through the glass. Her face went pale, her mouth opening slightly as if to speak, but no words came out. She was caught. Red-handed. The man across from her looked confused at first, glancing between us like he was piecing together the story. But Chloe? She wasn't confused. She was panicked. I could see it in the way her hand trembled as she set down her glass. She whispered something to him, probably an excuse, a lie, anything to salvage what little control she had left. But there was no salvaging this. I stepped through the restaurant doors, the bell above them chiming like a death knell. The sound cut through the hum of quiet conversations, heads turning as I walked toward their table. Chloe didn't move. She just sat there, frozen, like she was trying to figure out whether to run or fight. And me? I was done playing the fool. As I walked toward their table, the air in the restaurant felt thick with tension, the kind that makes people stop mid-conversation just to watch what's about to unfold. Every eye in the room was on me, but I didn't care. All I could see was Chloe, sitting there like a criminal caught in the act, her face frozen in shock. Her so-called date was the first to notice me approaching. He tilted his head slightly, his smug confidence faltering for a split second. He must have thought I was just some stranger until he saw the fire in my eyes, then he knew. Chloe shifted in her seat, panic flashing across her face as she quickly plastered on a fake smile. Evan, she started, her voice high-pitched and shaky, like a kid caught with her hand in the cookie jar. What are you doing here? The sheer audacity of her words nearly made me laugh. I stopped at the edge of their table, towering over them, and crossed my arms. Funny, I said, my voice low and dangerous. I was about to ask you the same thing. Thought you were at book club, Chloe. This doesn't look like book club to me. She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. Her eyes darted to the man sitting across from her, who suddenly looked like he wanted to be anywhere but here. He leaned back in his chair, raising his hands defensively, as if trying to distance himself from whatever storm was brewing. Smart move, I thought. Too late, but smart. Chloe forced a laugh, but it sounded hollow, desperate. Evan, come on, this isn't what it looks like. I cut her off, slamming my hand on the table hard enough to make the silverware rattle. Don't, I snapped. Don't you dare insult my intelligence by trying to lie your way out of this. The entire restaurant went silent. Even the waitstaff froze, unsure whether to intervene or stay out of it. Chloe's cheeks flushed crimson, her perfect little facade crumbling right before my eyes. Her date finally found his voice, clearing his throat awkwardly. Hey, man, he said, raising his hands higher like I was about to punch him. I didn't know she was married. I swear. Didn't know? I repeated, my gaze snapping to him like a whip. She's wearing a wedding ring, or did you conveniently miss that detail while you were trying to get into her pants? Chloe flinched, her face twisting with anger now, but I wasn't done. How long, Chloe? How long have you been lying to me? How many girls' nights and book clubs were just excuses to sneak around with him, or is he just one of many? Her jaw tightened, and for a moment, I thought she might actually cry. But instead, she did what she always does when cornered, she deflected. Oh, don't be so dramatic, Evan, she snapped, her tone shifting from guilty to defensive in a heartbeat. "You're making a scene over nothing. He's just a friend." I let out a bitter laugh, running a hand through my hair to keep from flipping the table. "A friend? Really? Is that what we're calling candlelit dinners and flirty smiles now? Just friends? Maybe if you weren't so paranoid," she hissed, her eyes narrowing, "you wouldn't jump to these ridiculous conclusions. Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is for me? For her. The nerve of her. As if she were the victim here. I'm embarrassing you?" I shot back, my voice rising. "You've been lying to my face for God knows how long, sneaking around behind my back, and somehow I'm the bad guy for calling you out? Unbelievable." Her date, clearly regretting every life choice that led him to this moment, started to stand. "Look, man, I think I should just sit down," I barked, and he froze mid-movement, his face pale. "You're not going anywhere until I'm done." Chloe stood up then, her chair scraping against the floor, and threw her napkin onto the table. "You're making this into a bigger deal than it is," she said, her voice dripping with exasperation. "Why can't you just trust me?" "Trust you?" I repeated, my voice shaking now, not with fear but with the sheer force of my anger. "Do you even hear yourself? How can I trust you when you're sitting here, lying to me, with him? You're unbelievable, Chloe." She rolled her eyes, crossing her arms like a sulking teenager. "Oh, please. Stop acting like you're perfect. You're always working late, always on your phone. Don't pretend you're some saint, Evan." And there it was, her trump card. Turn the blame on me. Shift the narrative. Classic Chloe. "Don't you dare," I said, pointing a finger at her. "Don't you dare try to make this about me. This isn't about my job or my phone. This is about you, Chloe. About your lies. About the fact that you couldn't even respect me enough to end this marriage before running off with someone else." Her expression hardened, and for the first time, I saw it, the cold, selfish truth beneath her pretty exterior. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't even ashamed. She was angry because she got caught. "Fine," she said, her voice icy now. "You want the truth?" "Yes, I've been seeing him. And you know what? I don't regret it. You're so obsessed with your work, with your stupid deadlines, you don't even see me anymore. So, yeah, I found someone who does." Her words hit like a punch to the gut, but I didn't flinch. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction. I looked at her date, who was now staring at the table like he wanted to disappear. "You can have her," I said, my voice low and steady. "But don't think for a second this is over." I turned and walked out, leaving her standing there, furious and speechless. As the door closed behind me, I felt the weight of what had just happened settle on my shoulders. This wasn't just the end of a confrontation. It was the beginning of the end of everything. The cold night air hit me like a slap as I stepped out of the restaurant, my head spinning with anger and disbelief. I didn't look back, didn't need to. I knew Chloe was still standing there, probably fuming, probably trying to spin the situation in her head to make herself look like the victim. That was her talent, turning every mess she created into someone else's fault. I got into my truck and gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles turning white. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it might break through my chest. I stared at the windshield, trying to focus, trying to breathe. But her words kept echoing in my head. "You're so obsessed with your work. You don't even see me anymore." What a load of crap. Was that her excuse? That I worked too much? That I didn't fawn over her 24/7? I had been busting my ass to provide for us, to make sure we had a good life, a stable future. And this was how she repaid me? With lies, with betrayal? I slammed my fist against the steering wheel, the sound ringing out in the quiet night. A couple walking by gave me a startled glance, but I didn't care. Let them stare. Let the whole damn town know what kind of person Chloe really was. My phone buzzed in the cup holder. I glanced down and saw her name on the screen. For a moment, I considered answering, but what was the point? More lies? More excuses? I let it go to voicemail. A few seconds later, it buzzed again. Another call. Then a text. Evan, please. Let's talk. Talk? What was left to talk about? I ignored the message and started the engine. The sound of the truck roaring to life brought a small, bitter comfort. At least this machine didn't betray me. I drove aimlessly for a while, the streets blurring past me as I tried to calm down. But every time I thought I had a grip on my emotions, another memory would surface. The way she used to laugh at my dumb jokes. The way she'd curl up next to me on the couch, stealing my blanket and pretending she was cold just to get closer. The way she looked at me on our wedding day, her eyes shining with promises she apparently never meant to keep. How did we get here? When did she decide I wasn't enough? And why the hell didn't I see it coming? After what felt like hours, I pulled into a deserted parking lot and turned off the engine. The silence was deafening, but I needed it. I needed to think. But thinking only brought more questions, more anger. I grabbed my phone and stared at her text again. Let's talk. Talk about what? How she'd been sneaking around behind my back. How long had this been going on? Weeks? Months? Longer? I couldn't believe I hadn't noticed the signs earlier. But maybe I had. Maybe I just didn't want to believe them. The late nights when she claimed she was out with friends. The sudden interest in dressing up more, wearing perfume she hadn't touched in years. The way her phone was always glued to her hand, even at home. How she started pulling away from me, emotionally, physically, in every way that mattered. I had chalked it up to stress, to the natural ebb and flow of marriage. I had trusted her. And she had thrown that trust back in my face. My phone buzzed again, pulling me out of my thoughts. Another text. Evan, I'm sorry. Please come home so we can talk about this. Sorry. She was sorry now. Was she sorry she cheated, or sorry she got caught? There's a big difference, and I was willing to bet it was the latter. I tapped out a reply before I could think too much about it. There's nothing to talk about, Chloe. You made your choice. Now live with it. I hit send and tossed the phone onto the passenger seat. My hands were still shaking, but this time, it wasn't just from anger. It was from something deeper. Something I didn't want to admit. I still loved her. Despite everything she'd done, despite the lies, the betrayal, the utter disrespect, there was a part of me that still wanted to believe this could be fixed. That we could go back to how things were before all this. But that part of me was dying. It had to die. Because Chloe wasn't the woman I married anymore. Maybe she never was. I sat there in the dark, staring out at the empty lot, trying to figure out what came next. Divorce? Separation? Could I even look at her again without seeing that smug smile she had when she thought she was getting away with it? One thing was clear, I couldn't go back to pretending everything was okay. Not after tonight. My phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a text. It was a voicemail notification. She had left a message. For a moment, I considered deleting it without listening. But curiosity got the better of me. I hit play and held the phone to my ear. Evan, please, just listen to me, her voice began, shaky and desperate. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But it's not what you think. Please, just come home and let me explain. I love you. I scoffed, ending the message before she could say more. She loved me? She had a hell of a way of showing it. I started the truck again, the engine rumbling to life. I didn't know where I was going, but one thing was certain, I wasn't going home. Not yet. I didn't sleep that night. I spent hours driving aimlessly, the city lights eventually giving way to dark, empty highways. Every mile I put between myself and Chloe felt like a small victory, but the weight in my chest refused to lift. By the time I pulled into my driveway, the first rays of dawn were creeping over the horizon. The house looked the same as it always had, our small piece of suburbia with the white shutters and the neatly trimmed lawn. But it didn't feel like home anymore. Not after what I'd seen. Not after what I knew. Her car was still parked in the driveway. A fresh wave of anger bubbled up in me at the sight of it. I had half a mind to grab a bat and smash the windshield, but I wasn't about to let her drag me down to her level. The front door was unlocked, as if she'd been waiting for me. I stepped inside, and there she was, sitting on the couch, her face pale and drawn. She looked like she hadn't slept either, though the mascara smudged under her eyes told me she'd been crying. "Evan," she started, standing up as soon as she saw me. "You're home." I was. "Save it," I said, cutting her off. I dropped my keys on the counter and turned to face her. "I don't want your excuses, Chloe." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She sat back down, twisting her hands in her lap. For once, she looked like she didn't know what to say, and that only made me angrier. All those lies she'd spun so effortlessly, and now, when it mattered, she was speechless. "Well?" I said, my voice sharp enough to make her flinch. "Aren't you going to explain? Isn't that why you begged me to come back? Go ahead, Chloe. Tell me why I caught you with another man last night." She looked down, her fingers tugging at the hem of her sweater. I didn't mean for it to happen," she whispered. "It just—" "Don't," I snapped, taking a step closer. "Don't you dare tell me it just happened. That's not how this works. You don't accidentally go out for dinner with someone. You don't accidentally lie to your husband." Her head snapped up then, her eyes blazing with defiance. "You don't get it, Evan," she said, her voice trembling but steady enough to hold its edge. "You've been so wrapped up in your work, in everything but me. Do you know how lonely it's been? Do you even care?" I stared at her, my jaw tightening. "Don't you dare make this my fault, Chloe. Don't you dare try to justify what you did by blaming me. If you were unhappy, you should have said something. But no, you took the coward's way out. You lied. You cheated." Her lip quivered, and for a second, I thought I saw a hint of guilt in her eyes. But then she crossed her arms, her expression hardening. "You think you're so perfect, don't you? Always acting like you're the victim. But you're not. You're never here. You're always working late, always distracted. When was the last time you even looked at me like you cared?" Her words stung, but I refused to let her see it. "And that's your excuse? That I worked too hard to provide for us? That I didn't coddle you enough? That's why you snuck around behind my back?" I shook my head, letting out a bitter laugh. "Unbelievable." Her silence was deafening, and for a moment, the only sound in the room was the distant hum of the fridge. I could feel the anger boiling just beneath the surface, threatening to spill over, but I kept it in check. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of seeing me lose control. "I trusted you, Chloe," I said finally, my voice low and heavy. "I trusted you more than anyone in this world. And you threw that away. For what? Some fling with a guy you probably don't even care about?" Her face twisted with anger. "It wasn't a fling," she shouted, standing up so fast the coffee table rattled. "You don't even know him. You don't know anything about what I've been feeling, Evan." I took a step back, my hands clenching into fists at my sides. "You're right," I said, my voice cold. "I don't know him. But I know you, Chloe. Or at least I thought I did. And the woman I thought I married wouldn't be standing here, trying to justify betraying me. The words hit her like a slap, and for the first time, I saw tears well up in her eyes. But they didn't move me. Not this time. So what now? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. You're just going to leave? Walk away from everything we built? I let out a hollow laugh, running a hand through my hair. What exactly did we build, Chloe? A house filled with lies? A marriage built on broken promises? Because that's all I see when I look at you now. She flinched, the tears spilling over, but I didn't care. I couldn't care. Not after everything.